Hello, welcome to Mountain Craft Studio. My name's Christine. Come on in and I'll show you what I've been working on. So I started rug hooking about 12, 15 years ago, something like that. I started out with a small project and for the most part have maintained fairly small projects. It's not something I do all the time, but I do enjoy it. And I love rugs. I loved hook rugs. I love collecting antique hooked rugs. But sometimes you just need to make your own. And so I have wanted to make this particular footstool for a while. It's actually a pattern that can be purchased. This is a pocket full square footstool. It can be purchased through Spruce Ridge Studios. You can get it at spruceridgestudios.com. It comes on pre-printed on the cloth, and then all I have to do is put it on my frame and start hooking. It's as simple as that. It's almost, the pattern looks like a line drawing, almost like something you'd find in a coloring book. It's just super easy to follow the lines and start filling it in. Generally, you will outline or you will hook a line of color on your line and then go back after and start filling in the center part. Just like that. And once you get them tight, filled in together, they kind of smush together and they look a little bit more uniform. And you have a rug. The hardest part is picking out the colors. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It can be somewhat hard on my hand, so I can't do it for marathon sessions. But I can't do anything for marathon sessions at this point in my life. I like to switch things up and do different crafts and that sort of thing in order to just make sure that I'm not giving myself a repetitive stress injury. And so this has been a good change of pace. So I thought, I've had some questions. I shared this on Instagram and I had some questions about rug hooking and how to get started. So I thought I'd share that with you today. I'll walk you over to the table and go through some things that I laid out for us to talk about. So as you can see, there's not a lot to it. Just to get started rug hooking, you need a hook. Something to pull your material, whatever it is, whether it's yarn or wool, cloth, or whatever. You just need something to pull it through that base fabric. And so there's different kinds of hooks. This is just your average hook, beginner hook that you can purchase, and you use that as a tool to pull things through. This is an ergonomic curved hook. They come in different sizes on the handles, and they different sizes on the actual hook, so that if you're hooking larger pieces of fabric, you'll want a larger hole made into the base fabric to pull it through, so you'd want a bigger hook. If you're just starting out, the cheapest hook you can find is going to be just fine. It will get the job done for you. The other thing that you might need, or that you do need, is a material, whatever you're going to be using to pull through the hoops. You can use anything. Historically, they would use rags, right? They're rags of clothing and that sort of thing. When they historically, the old antique quilts are made out of fabrics like that. And it just so happened that people used to wear a lot of wool. And so wool became really popular as a as the go-to, right, substance to pull through a rug. But it doesn't have to be wool. It can be just about anything. In this particular, this is one of my antique rugs. You can look at this and see it's got a little bit of everything in there. There's even some sections over here where I found some knit fabric. It's actually a really fine knit, but like a t-shirt or something, but it's in there. And so, and you can see that it doesn't take a lot of great skill to make a rug from artistic skill. This pattern is called Hit or Miss, and it's just using up scraps, right, to make a rug. It was made on burlap, right, and that's then folded over, and the rug is complete. And this is, I have another one that's made just like this. I didn't make these are antiques. But I have two rugs from the same person in two different patterns. There's millions of patterns, geometric patterns. There's all kinds of shapes. If you can, you know what, if you can draw basic line figures, you know, stick figures, you can draw yourself a pattern. The other, another option is to use not only fabric, but also yarn, and you can use both of them in the same rug. This rug is an antique as well. It has the outer dark fabrics are definitely like either men's slacks, I think, maybe, or something like that. And then the green is actually yarn, and the pink and red is also yarn. And it's a good size yarn, good puffy size yarn. I love this particular rug. It again was hooked on burlap, right? It has lasted all these years. It is now starting to have a little bit of an issue on the edges because it's worn, so it's not used as a rug anymore. But that's repairable, and someday I'll do a video on how to do that. There are, here it is. There's another style, and that's rug punching. It's used instead of a hook, it's actually a punch. And so this, I get it up close, this is all yarn. You can see, and you can see how uniform they are. They are all the exact same size. And that's because it was made with the punch needle rug hooking. And so instead of pulling the fabric up from the bottom, you're actually pushing it down from the top, and it's using this tool making the exact same size loop over and over and over again. And so this is how, like the rugs that you see nowadays at Home Goods or whatever, it looks like a hooked rug. They're not hooked, they're actually punched. And so this, I have one of these tools, I just don't have it with me at the moment. But this is another great way of making rugs. You might, if you're in a needle punch for the small little projects, this is just a bigger one, right? And you're going to use bigger yarn and that sort of thing. The other thing you'll need, in addition to whatever your materials are to make it, is a ground cloth. And so those were all made with burlap. Nowadays you can get a fabric called monk's cloth. This is, you want to get this type of monk's cloth from a rug hooker and not from Amazon, because the stuff on Amazon is not the same. But this is, you can see it's really soft and pliable, and then there's lines to help you line up your pattern and that sort of stuff. And then there's more of a linen type. There's still burlap. You can, it's varying prices. The monk's cloth is generally the least expensive, and it works just fine. It is a little more loosey-goosey, so if you're trying to make something stiff, you might lean towards going with one of the other options. But you can buy these, as you can see, this one, this is a chair pad, right? And so you can buy these already drawn up. That's what my footstool was like. And you're ready to go. You can also draw your own very, very easily. It's not that difficult. All you need is a Sharpie. And so you have your hook, your material, your ground cloth. Now what? You need something to hold that ground cloth taut. And it has to be taut. Otherwise, you'll be, you can get it through there and you can finish one, but your loops are going to be all kind of crazy because the fabric needs to be taut for the hook to come back through smoothly and evenly every time. And so I wanted to use this as an example. I found this whole thing in a thrift store recently. Somebody used this quilting frame to hook their rug, and they hooked it with yarn. I can tell that it's hooked instead of punched because there's some unevenness to them. If you do use one of your quilting hoops like this, you would end up sitting back and then you'd have it leaning up against your table and punch, 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 because you need to have one hand underneath and one hand on top in order to do that hooking method. And you would pretty much want to keep it to smaller than what this is, the size of your hoop, because if you get, I've seen people do it, they've put this hooked part out into the frame part and things just start getting super wonky. It can be done. You can put a piece of fabric in the other edge that's not hooked yet. But most people at that point go to a different style of frame. There is the lap frame that I know that you've seen. They're plastic. They have a hoop on the top and a hoop on the bottom and then sports in there. Oh, people use those. The locking ones of those work really well. But again, you're going to want to keep it for a small project. Most rug hookers, shortly after they decide that this is something that they're going to do more than a few times, go out and buy a rug hooking frame. And so this was my first rug hooking frame. I'd highly recommend that if you decide you wanted to do this, that this is something that you would purchase. It's small, right? It's not very big. It can sit right in my lap. I can use this for rug hooking or needle punch or any of that sort of stuff. So what makes this special are these grippers. It's a gripper frame is what you're looking for if you go out to Google this. And it's got these little it's like a dog brush, right? But they're kind of angled out this way. And then this, you'll notice, is angled out and down, right? And so that allows me to put this on really easily. Let me move you down so that you can see this. So you literally just lay it on there and then go like that, and it's stuck on there, and you've got a nice taut fabric to punch into. No problem. And obviously you can do the same with the fabric that you use for punch needle. Also, I've seen people put the gripper strips, which are sold separately, right, on other things that they put together. I've seen them used on picture frames, all kinds of things. I'm actually going to have my husband make a larger one of these for me that's a little bit wider because this is pretty small. This is definitely what you want to start out with, though, because if you have something small, if you're going to make a coaster, right, you don't want to have to draw a coaster on a huge piece of fabric to go on a larger frame. You want a smaller frame. You'll use your small frame a lot. The other option for frames is back here. So behind me you can see this antique frame. So this is a lot like a quilting frame. It actually it's almost exactly like a quilting frame, except it doesn't have a ratchet to keep the rails from turning. It actually has bolts on each end, and then you can tighten up those wing nuts. And so if you have a large rug, right, this is, you put it on there, wrap them around, tighten it up, and punch away, right? I chose not to use this one because some of the wing nuts are actually rusted on there and cannot be turned at this point. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to get tension even. So I actually chose to use my quilting frame. I have a beautiful quilting frame that I have my husband modified. Hang on just one second and I'll take you over there and show it to you. Okay, so here we are. Just gonna take this and show you I had this quilting frame. I bought it off Etsy. It has beautiful cherry upright supports. It had a cherry frame at the top, which then you have something else that wraps around and it holds the quilt on there. I love it. It's a great frame, but it didn't hold the fabric in tight enough because it was designed to hold 3 layers thick, right? And this is not 3 layers thick. So my handy husband just built a frame for me, and then we put some of the gripper strip on it, and we put it on the legs. So I'm reusing the legs for both quilting and rug hooking. And it's worked out beautifully. The only thing, you do have to have a little bit of an angle on your on the frame in order to make sure that it holds on the way it's supposed to. It's been great though. It's worked perfectly. So the next thing you would need is a way to cut your strips, and obviously you could just cut your strips with regular scissors, right, and make them whatever width you want. 1/4 inch is usually a good standard width that people will use to make a primitive style rug, and you can use regular scissors. You can use a ruler and a rotary cutter and a cutting mat, which is what I use quite a bit. And then there's also cutters, strip cutters. So these are not inexpensive. This is where the money starts racking up if you really get into this. These, I have found both of these secondhand. They are old. They don't work perfectly, but they work well enough. They have different size cutters that can go on these, and those can be purchased individually as well. And they make different width of strips. And so on this one I have the 1/4 inch wide, and it's I can't remember what this one has on it at the moment, but this one just has suction cups and it sits on top of the table, and you need to set it on something so that it won't slide around as you're cutting the strips, because it's amazing how quickly it'll get away from you. This one actually clamps onto a table, and you can rotate it and run the strips through. I use this one more for weaving rag rugs than I do rug hooking, but it definitely works for both. But like I said, just cutting strips with good old, rotary cutter is just fine, especially for getting started. As far as the width of the fabrics too, they don't all have to be the same size. Most people will use the same size throughout a rug, but if you go out and look at some of the rug hookers on YouTube, there's a couple of them that they'll throw anything and everything in there, and it makes absolutely beautiful rugs because the texture is different, and it looks really, really cool. A couple of other things. When you're doing the rug hooking, you're going to pull up at the end and snip it off, and so you'll need scissors for that. You can just use regular basic scissors, or you can get something like this. This is actually a curved offset scissor, so that when you go down to cut that edge, it just makes it easy that you're not going to cut all the rest of the loops. And then once you have your rug finished and it's all beautified, you will lay it down flat on your ironing board, get something wet, a wet towel, stick over it, iron that, and it steams, and then everything's nice and smooth and beautiful, and you wrap the edge around. And then if you are making a rug that you want to lay on the ground, I would recommend that you use this, is called rug tape. It's basically a twill tape, a wide twill tape that goes on the bottom of the rug, and it can go around the edge to protect it from wear. You know, the other rug I showed you where it was starting to wear out, this would wear out first before your actual rug would wear out. This one was glued on. I would not recommend that. You need to actually sew them on, because that will make it last. And then you just enjoy your rug, whatever it is. If you want to make, you know, a coaster, or you want to make a trivet, or you want to make an actual rug, maybe you just want something pretty to hang on your wall. None of it's rocket science. You can definitely go out and do this. If I can do it, you can. And you can make absolutely beautiful things. So let me know what you think. If you'd like to know a little bit more, I could explain more about going into how to restore old rugs, things like that, if you're interested. But I'm going to get back to what I was doing, and I will see you all later.